when you channel your energy and your focus in a certain direction, you will begin to create that reality and that outcome.
Well, hello, Ava.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on Out of Our Minds.
This is such a good conversation. I'm like so excited to dive into this.
Our nervous system can only stretch so much to hold new experiences and new opportunities. And I deeply believe that God would never give us something that we weren't able to hold.
It is coming. The miracle is on its way.
Be the person who can attract those things and who can hold those things, and they will come to you whether you're actively working on it or not.
There's always an opportunity to shift the perspective.
I just go back and get a corporate job because this seems to not be working for me. So maybe like this path just isn't meant for me. Who do I want to be in this moment? Do I want to walk with the fear or do I want to run away from it? That little shift of how I was approaching my practice changed everything for me.
You're always being given these gifts from God, the universe, and I feel like you were my gift today.
What I've found, whether it is success in business, success in relationships, success in our health, it's not always about what we do, but so much about
This conversation, boy, is it a gem. I have a feeling it is going to hit in all the right spots. Nikki and I, after we recorded this conversation, we were reflecting on how divine it felt to receive Ava's magic, to receive her story, her teachings, her wisdom, and really, most importantly, her embodiment of who she really is, the being that she is. Today's conversation is going to inspire you to not just go for your dreams and to create your vision board life, but to do it from a place of wholeness, beingness, and really honoring what wants to come through you. Now, we are excited about Ava because she is actually one of my closest friends, and she's been a part of my personal path to the work I do today, and also just as a friend along the ride. If you guys know my story about how when I quit my job and went to Costa Rica, Ava was the girl that I met up with, and she really changed my life. She was a huge part of my leap of faith, one of the biggest leaps of faith I ever took. So let me tell you a little bit about Ava, and then we're going to jump right into this conversation because it is truly, truly magical, and I just cannot wait for you to experience it. So what you need to know about Ava is that she is a powerhouse woman. She is a bold thinker. She is a bold beer, a bold doer. And she is the founder and CEO of the Academy of Breath, which is an online certification program. Ava is really trailblazing in the world of breathwork and bringing it to the mainstream in a very accessible and tangible way. I personally was certified through her Academy of Breath program, and it changed my life forever. I will personally be a testament to say that her approach to teaching breathwork not only honors the origins of it, but also brings it into the modern world in a way that is so deeply needed. And I am honored to be a part of her army that is bringing breathwork to every corner of the planet that we can. Between all of the work that Ava does with Academy of Breath, with her high-level support and coaching and programs, she is here to provide world-class education. She is here to shift how we build our businesses, how we build our lives, how we experience abundance, success, leadership, and she truly is a trailblazer in this space. In this episode, we also talk about the book that Ava has just written that will be coming out right around the date that this podcast is released. And it's truly an inspiring story to hear about how she went about writing this book, why she wrote it, and what she hopes that you will gain in reading it. Overall, I'm just excited for you to get to experience one of my closest friends in the whole wide world, one of the most heart-led women I know, badass initiators, trailblazers, all the possible words to describe this woman. So now let's just experience what she has to say, her energy, and who she really is. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with a friend, comment below on YouTube or on Spotify so we can hear what you think, and send Ava a message, DM her, let her know how it landed for you. She would love to hear from you. And welcome into the Out of Our Minds podcast. If you're new to our world, we have so much to offer you, a whole community, a membership, and beyond. And now let us experience Ava Johanna. Well, hello, Ava.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on Out of Our Minds. We are so freaking stoked, and we're excited to jump right the frick in. And I have a question that's just been kind of rushing through me as I feel into the just beauty and wisdom and all the experience and incredible stories that I know you have to share that we'll get into today. But I know something that you are so grounded in and such an embodied leader of is literally embodiment, and also this concept of really keeping it simple and keeping it very straightforward, right? Whether it's through the tools, through how you teach, your messaging, the way you speak, the way you live your life. I, as a friend and as someone who has benefited from your work and your coaching and all the things, I'm in awe of that way that you keep it so simple. So I'd love to know, what is kind of that grounding principle or that through line almost, if there was a thread connecting through all of the experiences, all the years of the ups and downs, the creation of AOB, Academy of Breath, all of this journey that you think has maybe brought you through it that you would love to share with our community.
Oh, yeah, that's such a great place to start. I actually shared this with a client earlier because it's so easy when we are like on this path of personal development and spiritual evolution to get caught up in all of the different things that we can do. And whether it's healing, going on retreats, plant medicine, reading the books, signing up for the courses, listening to the podcasts, I think that because we live in such a like hyper masculinized culture, we're still so programmed to think like, what is it that I need to be doing next? But what I've found, whether it is success in business, success in relationships, success in our health, it's not always about what we do, but so much about who we be in the process of it. And that's something that I've been coming back to a lot lately. It's not just about the action, it's about the energy and the intention behind the action and who we are actually operating as when we are showing up to do all of these amazing things and, explore all these amazing gifts that we have.
I have a question coming through.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is such a good conversation. I'm like so excited to dive into this. What would you feel like is the thing that you personally did to start focusing more on the beingness of the energy behind the actions? And also, what did that shift look like for you in your reality where you started noticing, oh my goodness, it's more about the energy behind the actions? What was like the evidence you were seeing where you're like, wow, less is more. I'm doing less and embodying this, and this is what's happening. I would love to kind of paint the picture of what exactly you did and then also what you began to see reflected in your reality.
Yeah. So I was one of those like type A high achievers, go constantly. And I got to a point about, I would say like 3 years into my business where I was like, I'm doing literally all of the things. I show up every single day. At the time I was driving around LA, going to like 4 different studios that I taught yoga, breathwork, or meditation at. And I didn't see the type of momentum that I assumed and expected would be aligned with how hard I was working. And so I had this moment where I just felt so frustrated, so discouraged, and literally was like walking into my ex's office every single day, like, should I just go back and get a corporate job? Because this seems to not be working for me. So maybe like this path just isn't meant for me. And I remember one of my very first mentors, her name's Amanda Merritt, was so just embodied in her heart, and she would go down to the beach and meditate and channel all these amazing messages and had all this incredible success. And there was just this feeling that I received whenever I connected with her, whether it was watching her Instagram stories or getting lunch with her, where I knew that she knew something and had something that I had yet to actually experience for myself. And so it really was saying, you know what, I'm going to invest in working with this person who models all of the things that I really desire and admire as well in a leader, that I learned how important it is to prioritize your energy first and foremost and let the doing come from that inspired space. And so it was so simple because all that I really shifted within my life was prioritizing my personal practices first and really treating myself as my most important client. And so prior to those moments, I was still meditating and practicing breath work, but I was doing it more so as something to check off of a list rather than a gift to give myself as a form of connection. And that little shift of how I was approaching my practice changed everything for me. I would sit down in the morning, connect to my heart, imagine myself putting on that like bright, radiant, abundant version of myself. And I would connect to her and ask her for support and be guided by her every single day. And it wasn't even that the action changed. It was more so that, again, who I was showing up as taking that action felt different to me, and then started feeling different to everyone around me. Within weeks, I literally started getting messages from people who were saying, I don't know what it is, but like your energy feels different. The way in which I am experiencing your Instagram stories or your emails feels so different than I used to. And I want to know like what are you drinking? Like what's in your water? And so it was really crazy how like quickly it shifted, but again, like how simple it was. It wasn't like I did anything different. It was the intention behind how I was doing the things that shifted.
I'm holding back.
So powerful. Yeah.
You go, Bella. This is just like
Yeah, I was just
crazy
going to
alignment with what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Something that was coming to mind was, something we talk about is kind of this oscillation of like remembering and forgetting, right? So the remembering being what you just spoke of when you realize and practice the idea that the beingness, right? The initial core frequency that you operate from, that is the most important before you take any action, before you do any soul-led hustle, whatever it is. And sometimes we forget, right? And I'm curious in your mind, what your either experience has been with what that looks like, sort of that gentle or not so gentle oscillation, or for somebody else, kind of what sparks, like what's that telltale sign that we're slipping into forgetting how important that is, and what do we kind of need to hear to get back into believing in that as the strategy?
So good. This is so good. So I think the biggest thing for me that I experience, and Bella, you will resonate with this because it goes back to human design, is when I start to find myself forgetting, I grow bitter and I operate solely out of my headspace, and I find myself ruminating on thought patterns that don't actually feel positive or powerful or divine, I should say. And I think it is likely different for every single person. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm a 1-3 projector, and projectors not self is bitterness. And so for me, it's that bitterness of feeling that frustration, feeling that resentment that shows me I have maybe just like stepped a little bit off the path and have fallen back into those old patterns. And I think that another thing that was coming up as you were asking that question is that sometimes I feel like we can fall into our egos and have a moment where we think to ourselves, well, I've got that piece mastered, so now I can just go back into the doing because I've mastered the embodiment. And I think that when we fall into that, we get lazy and we get entitled, thinking that we don't need to continue showing up for ourselves in that way. And maybe that is true for a certain period of time where we don't have to be as like strict with our daily practice. Like for me now, I don't have to force myself to sit down every single morning to tap into my heart like I did in the beginning. But I know that if I were to go a couple days or a week without being in practice, that I would start to feel those patterns come up. And so I think it's just a good reminder too that, we may have certain levels of embodiment and presence and beingness down, but we are also incredibly human, and it's incredibly easy to slip back into those old patterns if we let ourselves off the hook and just think, oh, I've mastered this, and so I can just like go operate and not focus on these things anymore.
When you're in this state of embodiment and you're in that energy, there's also this like subtle difference in the way that you're focusing on the goal, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I also find that sometimes when the ego gets involved, we're so focused on getting something accomplished or getting something done. But the embodiment process really invites in a new perspective on how to actually relate to that end goal.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things that I learned through Vishen Lakhiani, who is the Mind Valley founder, I believe Mind Valley is his company. He wrote a book called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And I remember reading this book back in 2017 when I was on a 3-month backpacking trip through South America. And one of the chapters, Vishen speaks about the difference between end goals and means goals. And the means goals are really like, you know, have a 6-figure business, write a best-selling book, you know, buy the house, get the car. And those means goals typically are surface level. It doesn't mean that they don't matter. It doesn't mean that they don't feel good. But the means goal is actually simply an opportunity for us to ask, okay, well, what is actually underneath this? What is this thing that I want represent to me? And those all stem down to a couple core emotions: safety, love, purpose. And so the embodiment piece, coming back to your question, brings us into focusing on the end goal, which is the safety, the love, the peace, the purpose. And what I've found is that when you focus on that first, not only does it make the process of manifestation and creation and accomplishment feel so much better, because we're not withholding those feelings from ourselves and basically creating this arrival fallacy of, I only get to feel that way once I have this surface level thing. But it also allows for us to really be in the energy of the thing that we're creating as we're creating it. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes the world of a difference, because if we aren't focusing on those core emotions, those core feelings that we ultimately are using as a underlying representation of whatever the surface level goals are, then we're essentially setting ourselves up to always feel like we're in lack and always feel like we're in scarcity, which just like, I'm sorry, that feels really shitty. That's like a really sucky way to live. And so it's been such a life-changing process and practice for me to really understand why embodiment is so important, not just for the sake of what I can receive in the future, but what I get to receive right now.
Oh my gosh, there's just the way I'm having this moment of wanting to really like highlight the way you speak about this for our community, for our Omis listening, because this is really like true embodiment is also shown in this like knowing of like almost like the laws of nature, the laws of the universe. And what you're speaking to is this beautiful nuanced energy where we understand what it means to be devoted to a practice, and that yes, sometimes there's resistance, sometimes you don't want to get on the meditation mat, but there's this understanding of knowing that we almost have to like we have to retrain ourselves to prioritize what you're saying, which is that actual end goal, that end vibration that we seek, which, you know, this is like the manifestation 101. Once you get more advanced, if you will, as you realize it's never about the thing itself, right? Yes, it's like you're saying, it's important. It's part of the journey. It's fun. We're here to play with the 3D world. But when you really start to take that remembering piece and make it a bigger quotient of your life, where you understand that when I feel this in this now moment, that is actually what my soul is seeking. And what that brings me to is another thing that had coming through was kind of hearing you connect that to what you view as your divine purpose, and how accessing these frequencies in the now moment of gratitude, of love, of safety, of being in your purpose, how that has added a lot of color to your work by it not just being a job, but it being a purpose?
There was a turning point for me about 4 years into my business where after I had begun manifesting so many of the things that I had put on my vision board and was no longer running away from my past, but running towards something, I realized how empty those surface level goals are if we don't have that deeper vibration of all of those emotions that I already had established: purpose, safety, love, meaning. And I remember, Bella, I think this was like right when you came into my life. I remember looking around at all of my life and realizing like I had done it, checked everything off the board. But the emptiness that was underneath the doing made me realize that there isn't really a point to any of it if we aren't actually prioritizing that underlying energy. And I think that that's why we have so many miserable millionaires and billionaires. I think that's why there are so many failed marriages, and ultimately why like there's so much unhappiness in the world itself is that we're kind of told, go and do these things, go and check these things off the list, but we're never really taught about what true fulfillment looks like. And true fulfillment really is all of those underlying feelings. And I have to check myself sometimes too when I'm like on my A game in business and showing up and taking the steps and doing the damn thing, and maybe things aren't happening as quickly as I want them to, or I have an off week. I have to check myself and like actually look around and be like, Ava, what is the reality of this situation? You're in a relationship with an amazing human being. You have 4 walls and a roof over your head that you were able to create yourself. You have a business where you get to show up every day and do things like this or help change other women's lives. Like, you have hit the jackpot. Anything more than this is extra. You don't need anything more than this. And I really believe that part of why I'm able to talk myself into that is because I did have those moments of creating outside of that energy and just creating because society told me so.
What would you share with someone who maybe is listening to this and they have a desire, but maybe right now in their life, they're not feeling those emotions of like gratitude and abundance? Where would you guide them to start?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I'm actively working on with a client right now. So the number one thing to remember is that it's easy to feel gratitude, excitement, and love when everything is going well. But the real test is in learning how to cultivate those feelings even when nothing has happened yet. Mm-hmm. And the way that I do that is through focusing on my output versus my inputs. So really focusing on the things that I can control, the things that I am doing, versus what's coming in and in reality, the things that I can't control, right? And so if I'm in a season where things aren't happening as quickly as I'd like to, or I've got something that I'm working on that hasn't necessarily unfolded completely yet, rather than focusing on why it hasn't happened yet or focusing on what's not here, it's an opportunity for me to focus on all of the ways that I'm showing up, right? It's the opportunity for me, like let's take a podcast, for example. Maybe the podcast doesn't have 10 million downloads yet, but oh my gosh, I just sent 10 emails to dream guests this week, and I focused on really getting better at my messaging and building out just like epic promo graphics and getting better at my studio setup and speaking on the microphone. And I'm doing all of these things to get me to that point. And I think that it's way easier said than done, 100%. But there are certain seasons where you just got to keep your head down and focus on what you are doing and what you can control versus what you can't control and what's coming in. And I think when you're in that period, I always say it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, then it's just simply a matter of when. Because if you continue to show up, if you continue to do your thing, then like the universe is going to respond. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. As you said that, it was connecting to this beautiful sort of, I mean, this is something that we know, but it's, again, a revelation Nikki and I were having around our own goals in this process of, you know, where you are sort of teetering between, okay, am I starting to focus too much on the proof of what's coming in, the result, and I need to refocus here. And something that Nikki shared with me was just the simple concept of remembering that the observer effect, right? And that when we refocus what we're observing, and what you just outlined was you shifted your lens, your focus onto all that was already happening, right? And especially the things from within. And with the world of quantum physics and, you know, manifestation, if we will, and all these different beautiful things that meet in this this spirit-led way of creating, is you realize that what you observe then helps it to actually collapse into form. And so when you are getting to, let's say, hung up on, obsessed, whatever it is, on, oh, I haven't signed this number of clients yet, like I haven't hit this goal yet, you're literally observing the reality that then, because you're observing it, is what is created, right? So then by shifting that observation, we use this very real phenomenon that allows the actual reality that you want to collapse into form. And it's as simple as this refocus that you just described in that version of inputs and outputs. And it reminds us again, this other layer of really what you've been speaking to this whole time, of that like grounding principle, that simplicity of coming back inward to what we can create. And that is like proven by all the other methods, right? Of the observer effect and what we know that breath work does, and this like way of running a business and a life where you are inwardly focused, realizing that this is actually the thing that creates the rest of it, right? Not the other way around.
Yeah, dude, the observer effect is so sick. I remember the first time that I learned about the observer effect, I watched like a million YouTube videos because it's science. And so I'm like, okay, wait, what are they saying? But it's true. What you focus on expands. You know, it's not like this is just some like cutesy little quote that you see on a yoga studio t-shirt or on Instagram. Like this has been researched. Quantum physics has been studied for a very long time. And I think for me being so heady, that was so helpful for me to just understand like, oh, okay, like there's science behind this. I don't have to just like believe in the like the ethereal and like the intangible. Like there is actual proof that when you channel your energy and your focus in a certain direction, you will begin to create that reality and that outcome. And so all I need to do is just continue to focus on the right outcomes, the right steps, and the right energy, and shit's gonna happen.
It's almost like in those moments where you're at the stage where things haven't yet dropped into form, but yet we know all these principles. So it's like, okay, embody the vision, just be in your gratitude, be in that energy. It's like you have to expand your nervous system to be with the discomfort of what isn't there, or like the challenge that's in front of you. So I'm curious if you have had any revelations on like nervous system regulation in this journey too, because I know that you are such a proponent of breath work, and you have the Academy of Breath where you have trained many souls on how to actually facilitate this teaching for other people. So how do you feel like the nervous system ties into this as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's one big piece that I always come back to, and I would say it's a little bit of science, a lot of woo. Our nervous system can only stretch so much to hold new experiences and new opportunities. And I deeply believe that God would never give us something that we weren't able to hold. If you want to call it God, universe, there's no dogma attached to it. But when we are in the process of becoming, the universe is working behind the scenes, rearranging, shifting, flipping it in reverse to bring us the right opportunities and to bring us the opportunity in the way that is going to be of the highest service for us as well. And so in that process, in my book, I call it the waiting room. While you're waiting when you're in the waiting room, there is preparation that needs to be done. And a big part of that is preparing your nervous system to hold the new level, right? I remember when I first bought my house, as an example, it was a whole new level. I'd never spent that much money. I'd never put so much money down. I had never, taken out a loan for that much. And although I had the money and although all of the paperwork went through, there was a big moment of, oh my gosh, like, am I going to be able to hold this all? And so in that period of time, that's really when I started leaning into, okay, if I'm not doing my breath work every single day to like help my nervous system just regulate this new level, then I am going to, have a complete panic attack and probably spin out and spiral into bad habits that would make that reality true where I'm not able to hold this all. But when you have, a practice like breath work, meditation, any really like stillness practices that are going to be calming and soothing for the nervous system, what it does is create that baseline of safety. And when we start to incorporate those practices in, when we're stepping into a new unknown space, we're essentially shifting the baseline of safety from what once was to what is now. And so going back to what I was first saying around like the universe, God is never going to give us anything that we can't handle. I really believe that part of the reason why we sometimes are caught in that liminal space before the manifestation actually comes to us is that we're in preparation mode with our nervous system, and then also in the 3D as well, to make sure that we have all of our little duckies in a row so that when it does actually come to us, we can hold it. So even like going back to the home buying process, there were 3 other homes that I had put an offer on before I found this house, and all 3 of those ended up falling through. Curious, why did that happen? Well, I was going through divorce. I was in the process of losing a couple really close friendships. I was traveling at the same time. I was still kind of getting back into the swing of things with my business. If I had gotten accepted on any of those houses before, I wasn't in a emotional or energetic state where I had the capacity to hold any of those things. And so it's always a great reminder, I think, whenever we aren't receiving something or we think we're about to receive something and it falls through, whether it's a relationship, a house, a job opportunity, etc., that if it didn't come to us, there's a bigger reason why, and to not fret, not freak out, but to truly trust that it's all in our highest good and that it's just simply an invitation to look at, okay, where do I need to further prepare? Whether it's further preparing my nervous system or further preparing like my actual 3D reality.
Wow. Okay. So many revelations were clicking for me as you said this, because typically this concept of a waiting room is actually something that Nikki and I will talk about, but when the waiting room turns into a self-imposed one where you are unnecessarily waiting to take an action or to embody, right? But I love this that you just described, because it's seeing a very divine waiting room that is actually what you are referencing as a sacred time to prepare for what is to come. And that is a very different energy, because that is where you are trusting and you are saying to yourself and to the universe again, I know that you are going to bring me whatever it is that is meant for me, that this manifestation is coming through, that you're working on something incredible for me. I trust you. So I'm going to sit patiently in the waiting room and I'm going to do my practices and prepare myself and whatever that looks like, right? Which is like physical, energetic. It could be like, the simple analogy of, I just used this the other podcast. You're getting a puppy proof your house, get excited, like clear things up. And that's actually a very beautiful part of the journey that is under the assumption that it is coming. The miracle is on its way. And something about the way you described that just really clicked visually and just in life, connecting it to this process of being okay with that space in between, and that's actually almost like on purpose, because God understands our physical bodies need the time to calibrate to that new frequency. And what a beautiful way to view that space in between, and understand like the 3D time and space lag is not because you're not good enough yet or whatever. It's like, no, it's because you're getting time to prepare for the immense, beautiful miracle that's coming, and to actually be able to hold it. Like you're saying, that's the thing is, gone is the era, this old paradigm of getting the house and the job and the salary, but being frankly shitty experience of a human being who can't even hold it and be, an actual vessel for abundance. And now we're in this new paradigm where it's about actually being able to hold it. And because of that, we respect the journey there. We respect the tools that have been given to us that are literally built into the system of breathwork and mindfulness and meditation and dance and all these different ways that we can calibrate our system. And it's firing me up to really think about this, because it gives another piece of the trust puzzle that I think a lot of people get frustrated with, of that lag and thinking, and then thinking that is something bad about them, or that they haven't done enough work. And then they just go back into hustling, right? Instead of realizing that there's this beautiful liminal space that you've been gifted so that you can enjoy what's to come even more.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love the way that you just said that. And the vision that I always have in my mind when I think about the waiting room is like literally when we were kids and we would go to the doctors or go to the dentist, and you have to wait for God knows how long in those waiting rooms. And you're not just sitting there like twiddling your thumbs, getting pissed off. You're playing with all of the little fishies and like seeing if they'll follow your finger, or you'll take out what was that one magazine called, that the kids magazines with all the different games in them. No, but I loved that one too. It was, oh gosh, I can't remember it. It had like
a more juvenile one.
Way more juvenile. Yeah. For the real kiddos. It had like all of those different games in it and stuff. So you could play games, or there was
oh my God.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. Holy crap. What was that called? We have to look this up after, because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And there, there's the little like the thing with the circles on it. It's like not an abacus, but it's kind of like a giant playful like abacus thing. And so it's like you don't go into the waiting room and just sit there and get pissed off and just get like heated as every minute goes by. You make the most out of your time with what is there. And I think that again, it's such a hard practice, because we do live in such a world where it is measured by your achievements. It's measured by those big milestone moments, but the milestone moments are a tiny percentage of the entirety of our life. Our life is primarily the mundane. And so rather than holding out for those milestone moments that also go by like that, why can't we make those mundane moments feel just as enriching and fulfilling as those milestone seconds that go by?
It's also like, I always used to say that life is just one big game of perception. So it's just like choosing to see the lens of your reality through the higher perspective. So it's like, if you feel like you're in a waiting room, make it a fun waiting room. Like there's always an opportunity to shift the perspective. And I'm curious for you, like what have been those really beautiful moments for you where you, just to share some fun, expansive moments, like some things in your life that you weren't actually manifesting a specific, but it came in and it was like beyond what you could have even imagined. Are there any moments in your life where you feel like, holy crap, I wasn't so particular and defined about this one thing, and it allowed for more miracles and freedom with the actual results of like the rendering of reality?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think my partnership is one of the biggest ones. I was not at all wanting or looking for a relationship. I had just ended my 7-year relationship / marriage with my ex. I was in Mexico. I wanted to surf. I wanted to drink margaritas, and I wanted to just make money and be a happy tan digital nomad. And I met that fucker on the, can I say that? I met
First
him
thing is
on
welcome, Don.
I met him on day freaking 2, and I'm like, okay, what is going on? And it was one of those things where I didn't put pressure on it. I had no expectations around it. I just wanted to have fun. He just wanted to have fun. But it ended up turning into the greatest love that I have ever had, and it was out of left field. I never would have planned for it. Nor asked for it either, but it came to me. And I think that it really was through that state of openness and surrender and not looking, but being that vibration that does attract love. And I think a part of it also was because I had done so much work on learning how to love myself and learning how to be okay by myself prior to that moment, that when we connected in Mexico, I was of the energy of a divine partnership and of the type of man and human being that would meet that frequency. And so I think that was probably one of the biggest, a little fun one that came up recently, actually. I don't know how many details I should give of this, but I got a text message out of nowhere. I'll actually give backstory. So I am a business coach. I do also coaching with executives and leaders. And I love the show Billions on Showtime. I'm not sure if either of you are familiar. But one of the main characters, Wendy Rhodes, she's like an executive coach. She's a badass. She like supports all of these super successful traders. And while I wouldn't want to work in that type of environment, I remember a couple of years ago being like, I want to be Wendy Rhodes. Like, I want to be a executive coach. Like, I love that energy. It's so powerful. And about a month and a half ago, I get a random text message out of the blue from somebody who works on the show Billions asking me if I want to collaborate on doing a retreat with them. And it was literally out of the blue, not something I was actively manifesting at all, but it was just so funny. Like, I showed the text message to Matt, my boyfriend. I'm like, dude, no way. This is crazy. I thought it was fake at first and ended up not being fake. And now we're doing a retreat in Greece together this summer. But it was just one of those things where it's like, also another example of like, ask and you shall receive. Calm down. Like, it's coming. Just show up and like be the person who can attract those things and who can hold those things, and they will come to you whether you're actively working on it or not.
So good.
Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah. I would love to switch gears a little bit if it's okay with you and ask you about your book. And I actually just want to ask first the why you wrote this book, why you endeavored on this project, and what it means to you as well.
I wanted to write a book. There's more to it, but I think at the core, I really wanted to write a book. When I started my wellness brand in 2015, it was a blog, Kicking Asana, and I would write about the power of meditation, why you should meditate in the morning. Then I started writing for publications like Wanderlust and Mind Body Green and Yoga Journal. And I really love writing. Like when I was in school, English, I was in honors English, which is crazy. And I just fell in love with books. From being a very young girl, reading Harry Potter in a single evening to finding personal development books, picking up The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein in my early 20s. And I think it was actually when I picked up one of Gabby's books that I realized, oh, this is the type of book that I want to write one day. And I want to write it for the girl I am today. And so several years later, still getting in my way around what the book was going to be and if I was fully ready to write a book and all of the excuses that I imagine many other writers have. I finally, at the end of 2023, said 2024 is going to be my year of creativity, connection, and I'm going to write my fucking book. I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. I'm going to write it. And I didn't at that point know actually what I was going to write. I just knew that I was going to write a book. And it was a really divine process. The start of it was actually just sit down and write whatever you want to write and see what happens. Just start writing every single day, every single week. And so it really just started with the container of if you just need to write 2,000 words a week. And as long as you write 2,000 words a week, you're on track. I had no outline, no idea what the book was going to be, no title, no subtitle, no chapters. I just started writing. And as I continued to write chapter by chapter, I realized, one, the chapters were coming out in perfect order. And two, the book was truly a creation from that initial intention of I will write a book for my younger self and for all of the girls, all the girlies who are at the very beginning of their personal development journey. So yeah, it's very, I would say, out of the ordinary in terms of how I approach the book writing process, but it was nothing short of divine in how it all came to be.
Do you feel like you channeled it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because there was no structure.
Yeah. When you're saying that, I'm like, oh, this was just a channeled masterpiece. Like the chapters just unraveled as you went.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, truly.
I don't know about masterpiece, but it's pretty damn good. It's sassy. It's filled with stories from my own life that I've never shared before. And then it really is like a guidebook for the girl who's just at the beginning, because I know how I felt, the excitement I felt, the curiosity I felt, the eagerness I felt to just like learn and go down the rabbit hole. Maybe that's my 1 or my 3. I don't know, Bella, you tell me. But
It's the one.
Definitely the one.
it's the one. Okay. But I knew that even though it doesn't necessarily like make complete sense with what I do right now, right? Like I logically, I should have written a book on breath work, but every single time that I sat down to write a book on breath work, I just froze up and I was like, this is not what I want to write on. And breath work is intrinsically connected throughout the entire book because it is just the practice that I always turn back to. But yeah, it was not from the logical. It was 100% from my heart and from my higher self and from my younger self as well.
Do you feel like you infused your teachings of embodiment in the process of writing it that made it so flowy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also watched my ex go through the writing of his first book, and it was maybe like a 3-year process altogether. And I just saw him like force himself through the majority of the book writing process and, you know, love him to death still, but complain about the book. And, you know, it just didn't seem enjoyable. And I think that was also a part of the reason why I stepped away from desiring wanting a book or had those excuses come up for a while, because I saw what it looked like to not actually have fun in the process of it. And so for me, it was really important from the very beginning to make sure that it was fun the entire way through and that there wasn't a moment where I felt this, I have to do this, that it was always a, wow, like I get to do this. And there were so many moments too when I was like writing the book and just crying, because not because it was like so good, but more just, it is really good. I should stop being so self-deprecating, but There were moments where I would just like cry because I'm like, holy crap, like I'm literally living out one of my biggest dreams right now. And this book is coming closer and closer to being complete, and just feeling so excited and just so grateful about the process. And that was a really important part to me, because I didn't want it to just be something that I pushed myself through, because I also really deeply believe that people can feel the energy behind the creations we put out into the world as well. And I wanted it to feel pure, and I wanted it to feel fun, and I wanted it to feel playful.
Like getting emotional
That's
as
incredible. It's
hearing you say this. I just need to add that you can just really feel your devotion to life and how aligned you are. And I'm just reflecting on like even just the three of us sitting here, like we created this life for ourselves. And to hear your story and just to hear how much joy and presence that you were able to really feel into during that creation process is just such a testament to you being in the driver's seat of your life and creating this heaven on earth for yourself in your career and what you're doing for yourself. And I think a lot of listeners that are tuning into this podcast, they are people with big dreams and big visions. And when you're first starting, it can feel so like almost too big. Like, oh, how is this ever going to happen? But I'm curious what you would share with someone who maybe is like, yeah, just like the message that you're sharing of the people who are going to read this book are the ones who are just starting this path. What would you share just as a reminder for them, something that they can like keep in their pocket with them? And then they'll go read your book.
Yeah, go read my book. No, I think the really important thing to just note is that, sure, yes, I have created my heaven on earth, but sometimes it feels like hell on earth, and it's not always perfect, and it's not always a flawless execution when I am showing up either in my creative projects or my relationship or my business. Like there are a lot of moments that are really challenging. There's a lot of moments where I feel inadequate. There's a lot of moments where I feel impatient and frustrated. And so it's completely normal at every single stage to experience all of those things. And I don't think that we ever fully stop experiencing the spectrum of those different emotions and sensations, because if you are on this path, growth is hardwired into your DNA. And so there's always going to be another level. There's always going to be something more. There's always going to be a new curiosity, a new direction to go, a new project to try out, which means that we're always going to kind of be a beginner. And so much of being a beginner is the vulnerability of not having it fully right and having to just get our feet wet and try things out. And if you understand that that is a part of the process, it doesn't necessarily mean that the process is going to be inherently easier, but it's a perspective to hold alongside every single step that you take. And for me, I know that that was a massive revelation. The way that my mentor put it is, we are on a mountain with no peak. And so if you understand that you are always climbing and that there really isn't any peak, then you should enjoy the view from where you are and give yourself grace for not necessarily reaching the quote unquote top yet.
so powerful. I'm just hearing you describe this whole process, like Nikki said, is number one, just a testament to who you are and your teachings and your guidance, but it's also like just a huge permission slip for the visionaries that are wherever they are at the beginning, halfway up the mountain with no peak, just realizing now, oh, there's no peak, so let me just keep going and enjoy it. But it's so important to give ourselves that grace that we are having this human experience, like you're pointing out, and there is doubt that comes up. And it sounds like, yes, on the one hand, the book writing experience was beautiful, but I'm sure, and actually you can speak to this if it's not true, but of course there was probably those moments of the mind chatter or a little bit of resistance coming up. But I think it's like when you have that bigger why and that bigger, foundation of frequency of love, what we talked about at the beginning, that really gets to guide you through it. And it becomes this get to energy. And even if there is resistance on that morning that you're meant to sit down and write the next, several hundred words, that it's almost like the bigger aura around you knows what to do and is like pulling you there. And so then that little voice of doubt just becomes like, almost like the cute little kid that we get to bring with us and show that, hey, it's okay. Like we can keep climbing this mountain, even if we're not sure what the outcome is going to be like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, don't get me wrong. There have been many moments where I've had resistance come up, and there have been, I even when we started this conversation, I was like, I'm the bottleneck right now. And so it's not perfect execution by any means, but I also just come back to the fact that like whether it's writing a book, starting a podcast, launching a business, these creative endeavors, these passion projects, these things that are like seeds planted inside of our hearts, so many people are ignoring them. And the fact that you are doing it, regardless of the judgment, regardless of if it flops, regardless of people love it, like you are doing it. You are bringing this vision to life. And honestly, like fuck the haters if it doesn't turn out the way that you wanted it to. You had the courage to actually do it, to actually birth something. I mean, that is so rare. There are way more people on this planet that are sleeping on their potential and sleeping on their creativity than those that are actually giving themselves permission to say, you know what, I'm going to do this scared. I'm going to do this imperfectly, and I'm going to do this despite whatever the results might be.
Doing it scared really stuck out when you just said that, because I'm like, that's exactly it. It is literally feeling that fear and knowing that you can be with it. You can expand into it. And for you, with like facing that fear, you're saying each level, it comes up in like a new way, right? But
yes,
we just become these beings that can actually hold it without defining who we are based off of the emotions that we're feeling. And I'm curious for you, like with this and thinking about just the fears that are coming up, have you found that you now get like excited when there's a new discomfort arising because you have all this evidence of your past and seeing how every time there was that discomfort or challenge, there was like this moment of expansion? How has your relationship to the fear evolved over all of these years of just coming face to face with it,
Yeah. No, I do not get excited.
No?
No, I don't get excited. But again, it's like I have the proof in the background, right? It's like,
yeah.
Perfect example. When we were in Greece, there were a couple different boats that we chartered, and there was a smaller little sailboat that we took first. And I remember being like, "Ooh, I really want to jump off the side of the sailboat." And I could not do it. I was so scared. There's actually a 5-minute long video of me attempting to jump off of this boat. And every single time I run, and then immediately just stop right at the edge. And then I'm like, damn it. And then I run back, and then I go. And I'm just like, oh, and then I'm like, this video is 5 minutes long and I haven't done it. I'm going to turn it off. This is embarrassing now. And then we get a bigger boat. And on the bigger boat, I'm like, okay, well, Ava, you had so much fear on that last boat. You didn't commit, and you know that you're going to be safe. You know that you can do it. You saw so many other people jump off the boat. Like, you've got this. And even though it was a bigger boat, I finally was like, just get out of your own way and jump off the side of the freaking boat. And I couldn't do it. I literally, one of the girls that was on the boat, I was like, it's not that bad. Come up here. Let's do it together. And she's like, I'm terrified. I'm like, no, you're going to be fine. Like, we've got this. People count down. 3, 2, 1. She just sends it, jumps off. And I go, I can't do it. I felt so bad too because I like totally bullied her into it. And so then I go on a even bigger boat, and this time in Costa Rica, and I'm probably at this point 30 feet above the water, whereas the other one was maybe 10 feet, and the one before that was like a foot. And I'm standing on
I
the
should have jumped off the first one.
yeah, right. So I'm standing on the edge of this like 100-foot yacht, 30 feet in the air, and I have this conversation with myself where I'm like, you saw people on the second boat, you saw people on the first boat. You can do this. Like, you've got this. And in the past, you were the 6-year-old kid that would send it regardless. Like, you wouldn't even think twice about it. So freaking jump. And I jumped, and it was so much fun. And I went back up, and I jumped again, and I did it again, and I did it again, over and over and over again. And the reason why I share that story, not only because it's silly, but the reason why I share this story is because we're going to likely have fear at every single level. And the way that we show up at every single level when the fear is there is only strengthening the muscle of what we believe to be true about ourselves. And so in the case of the boat, sure, I could believe that because of the last 2 boat experiences, I wasn't going to be able to jump off this boat. But instead, I shifted my perspective and said, I had so much proof from other people that this would be okay. And I think that a lot of people end up compounding belief in a smaller version of themselves, so that when fear comes up, they look at that version of themselves, and that's the proof that they look at, versus asking themselves, well, who do I want to be in this moment? Do I want to walk with the fear, or do I want to run away from it? And I think that the more that we walk with the fear, whether you're excited about it or not, you're gritting your teeth and grinning and just going for it, the more that you are pouring into the version of yourself that you want to become, the bigger version of yourself, rather than pouring into the smaller version of yourself that you're trying to actively step away from.
I'm thinking back to the observer effect again.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when people are so attached to their past version of self. It's like we're constantly collapsing and reestablishing ourselves as just energy. And like these pockets of energy are just constantly going in and out. And we are not the same person that we were a second ago or 2 seconds ago. But what happens is the mind is like taking all the past memories and collapsing this now version of us based off of the past. So I love what you're saying about perspective. It's really hitting because it's just like our opportunity to observe ourselves as something different. So yeah, it's hidden.
Yeah. I love that. I love that the observer effect has come up in this conversation. It was perfect. Can you share what a vision board life, the term itself, really what that represents to you, and what you hope it inspires in people, in your readers, and just anyone that comes into contact with the beautiful gifts that you have to offer? What is that meaning of the vision board life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually not like a massive vision boarder where like every single year I like sit down with 40 magazines around me and build out a vision board. I do on my phone, I create like a Pinterest board and then I make it my background for the year, but I don't have like a massive vision board. But I love the concept of what a vision board represents to us, which is this sacred creation that we've put together filled with all of our dreams, everything that expands us, all of the things that inspire us, and everything that we wish to become true within our life. And so the vision board life isn't so much about teaching people how to vision board. I break down the aspects of what are encompassed within a vision board life, from your health to your relationships, your career, your money, your impact, your family, travel, all different arenas of life. But it's more so to inspire young women to understand that if you have a dream, you have the ability to create it. You have the ability to become the woman who turns dreams into reality. And that's the intention behind the book, is really providing the process of becoming that version of yourself through embodiment, through preparation, through specific practices, through the shifting of your identities and the labels that you are giving yourself, through alchemy even of our experiences, of our stories. And my wish ultimately is that for any person that reads this, they really understand, and like on a soul level, that it doesn't matter who you are on day one opening the book. Whatever it is that you desire, you have the capacity to create it. And it's just about getting the right tools, the right education, and the right belief systems in place to shift your identity so that you know that to be true about yourself.
Wow. It's I'm really just in awe of this gift of a way of approaching life that feels so, I just have the word hopeful coming through really, and it just gives us this, we're both grounded in knowing that there is a way forward. We know what the mountain looks like. We know what's going to come up. And there's also these tools that ultimately turn each person back to themselves to realize that the whole game, the whole point of the vision and everything is the woman standing in the middle of it, is the you that you are right now and in that vision and on the way there. And I feel that there is just, I'm getting a visual of a ripple is beginning here, and I'm wanting to express just gratitude for what you have created, what you've done with your life so far, the incredible creations that are to come, this gift of a book that you have created and dedicated yourself to, because you are 1,000% a heart-led leader that is in this, whether you call it the new paradigm space, the new earth, the future, whatever it is, you are such a beautiful representation of that. And anyone listening, I really encourage you to re-listen to this episode, connect with Ava, buy her book, and just sink into knowing that you are listening to and hearing from someone that is a true walking embodiment of really every topic, all the beautiful spiritual truths that we talk about on this show, but also that, you're someone that has a dream, like you said. So our listeners are dreamers, they're visionaries, and I feel this gratitude that we're in this collective bubble, if you will, of dreamers and doers and visionaries that think this way and that are doing it from a soul-led place. So all to say, I just have a lot of gratitude, and I got chills multiple times in this conversation. And I just want to encourage this moment here to be a kickoff point for people, right? To be a spark, to really take that feeling that you're getting of, oh, that's so interesting. Or, wow, yes, I have been getting this vision. I have this curiosity about this thing. Hell, I've been wanting to write a book too. And let this be the start of something, right? And know that that energy is in you because it's meant to be created with. So on that note, I would just love you to leave any last little divine gifts of wisdom or mini stories or shares to really let this conversation be a spark for people to continue moving forward.
I think the spark, and thank you so much for everything that you shared. You know that I love you so much, and I'm so appreciative to be able to just share and to connect with you both, because you are a phenomenal podcast host, but also just phenomenal women. That idea of the spark, right? There is a spark that can light a fire, but in order to keep a fire going, in order for a fire to burn brighter, we need to breathe life into it. And so even if it's just taking a single step from after listening to this podcast, right? Like if you do want to write a book, even if it's just opening up your Google Docs and titling it book and starting to write for 30 minutes. Again, you don't have to even have a direction that you're going, but just start to put, I guess, fingertips to the keyboard instead of pen to paper now, because we are in 2025, y'all. But even if that's the next step, the next action that you take, continue to breathe life into whatever spark was lit today, because the more that you do, the brighter that spark and that fire will grow.
Powerful. Nikki, do you have anything else that you'd like to add here to beautifully close out this incredible gift of a conversation and transmission?
I'm just always in awe of the alignment of these conversations, and like the fact that this call got rescheduled. It's just so divine, because I've been having my own revelations that have just perfectly tied into this conversation. And it's just, you're always being given these gifts from God, the universe. And I feel like you were my gift today. Like, I got to receive all of the beautiful wisdom that you were sharing, and it just really resonated with me on such a soul level. So thank you so much. And guys, reach out, leave comments, DM Ava, add her on Instagram. Like, let us know how this landed. Let her know how this landed. And we are just really creating such a beautiful community of like-minded souls on this path. And it's so beautiful to see our community grow with bringing guests onto this podcast. And it's just like we all carry such a similar frequency to us. And I'm sure all the listeners are like, wow, she resonated with my soul. So I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to check out your book. And we'll definitely leave all the information below for you guys to look and go buy your copy. But thank you so much. And I'll pass it over to Bella if she has any last minute words. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also grateful. I echo everything. And I will just let you, Ava, if there's anything you want to point people towards, how to connect with you, etc. In addition to everything we'll put in the show notes, but please let the people know.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
So
Omis.
The Omis. Well, one, can I request that the outro be the Out of Your Mind song?
Yes. Is that legal that we can use that
Yes.
song?
I think
Get
if
out
we
of
do
your
just a small clip.
Yeah, just a little bit. And then we can all go like this,
Yeah.
and then Ava's dream will come true.
That's hilarious. No, ever since we put this on the calendar, that song's been stuck in my head. But depending on when this episode comes out, will either be available for pre-order or for actually ordering it. But if you want to connect with me before then, my Instagram is at Ava Johanna. The website is avajohanna.com or academyofbreath.org if you're interested in breathwork and meditation certification. But yeah, I mean, I love connecting with people via the DMs. It's my like main space of connection in terms of the interwebs. And so feel free, if you resonated with this episode, to reach out and let's start a conversation and chat.
Beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much. Everyone go hit Ava up. Go get all in her grill and in her world. And we'll do our dance move so we can have Out of Your Mind play at the end. Oh my
We
God.
just start twerking in our thumbs.
Just a remix.